Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayosritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Namastri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Surya Satchisuka Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Got very busy today because now we had a huge, it's a combination. We had already announced our annual celebrations. And then suddenly the news came that Mahara's special puja and Bhandara has to happen on the 7th. So combining the whole thing, the puja started at 7 or so, and by the time we finished and all that, it was very extremely hectic. Anyway, there's nothing like reading the gospel.
No problem.
So Yam's second visit to Sri Ramakrishna took place on the southeast veranda at 8 o'clock in the morning. So once he got the taste, the rasa, he could not resist the temptation of coming back again. And he came very soon. It was not that there was a huge gap. Already, it's like Sri Ramakrishna himself says, I think somebody from Brahma Samaj told him, Moshe, apnar kache lok ashe, kokhon apni kotush kore kamde den bujhai jay na. People come to you. When do you really cut them? We really don't know. And then it's like a poisonous snake, and they are completely turned to your side or turned in your direction. Some such meaning. So, very unknowingly, quite often, actually, that's what we really do not understand. What an immeasurable treasure we have got. What a great grace it is of Sri Ramakrishna on us. Because let us not ever imagine that we came on our own. We were really brought in by him. In fact, the day we realize that, we'll be much better off and we'll be able to do more intense sadhana. Actually, it's a very famous incident in Gaurdasi, Gaurima. She was, kind of a mendicant even from a very young age. She had roamed about here and there. She had left her home at a very early age. And then years later, maybe 10, 15 days later, they traced her somehow in Vrindavan and brought her home. And Balram Bose was either related to them or known to them. He told us several times, you come to Sri Ramakrishna. He said, I have seen many. If he wants, let him attract me. Why should I go? So 2-3 times he said, and then he kind of gave up. She had probably, I think it was the image of the foot of probably Jagannath or something, which she used to do Abhishek and worship every day. One particular morning, when she was about to do that, she actually saw those 2 feet literally on the ground. She was so overwhelmed by that experience, just those 2 feet alone. And that day when Master Moshe said, she agreed. She came to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was pulling something using strings. And afterwards, before she left, when she did pranam, she saw the very same 2 feet which she had seen live in the morning. So there are many, many unique ways in which Sri Ramakrishna attracts his devotees. So in our case, it might not have been so dramatic or so significant, but unknowingly, we have all been attracted that way. Otherwise, left to ourselves, given our nature and our samskaras, I don't think we would have ever got attracted that way. But having come, we must really make use of this great opportunity, and we should really try to progress in our spiritual life. The master was about to be shaved, the barber having just arrived. As the cold season still lingered, he had put on a moleskin shawl bordered with red. Seeing him, the master said, "So you have come. That's good. Sit down here." He was smiling. He stammered a little when he spoke. So no one else was there. So obviously it was quite early in the morning. He had chosen a very right time, 8 o'clock. So he had the whole time for himself, and Sri Ramakrishna was alone. He was the only audience, so to say. Sri Ramakrishna, where do you live? In Calcutta, sir. Where are you staying here? I am at Baranagar at my older sister's Ishan Kavira's house. Ishan was a great devotee of Thakur. Oh, at Ishan's? Well, how is Keshav now? He was very ill. Indeed, I've heard so too, but I believe he is well now. Sri Ramakrishna, I made a vow to worship the mother with green coconut and sugar, dark chini, on Keshav's recovery. Sometimes, in the early hours of the morning, I would wake up and cry before her, Mother, please make Keshav well again. If Keshav doesn't live, whom shall I talk with when I go to Calcutta? And so it was that I resolved to offer her the green coconut and sugar. See, imagine Thakur's compassion. Somewhere Keshav, it was long afterwards he became a great devotee. Initially, they all thought that his followers, Keshav was far superior, was highly educated, was revered all over the world. He had been to UK and all that, England several times. And here is a person who was unlettered, had no education, straight from village. Of course, finally he became completely convinced and kind of converted. But Thakur was praying for his recovery, that he should get well and so on. Tell me, do you know of a certain Mr. Cook who has come to Calcutta? Is it true that he's giving lectures? Once Keshav took me on a steamer and this Mr. Cook was in the party. Actually, Sri Ramakrishna had a kind of allergy for this lecturing people, lectures. He says, your one job is to, he will say, to enlighten others. God knows where you are in what darkness. And anybody talking without that kind of a mandate from God, which he used to call as chapras, says absolutely it make no difference, nothing whatsoever at all. So he was always talking about, see, is it very true? I really experienced this with respect to one of our very great Swamis, who was considered a great speaker actually. So we had an occasion to distribute some books to a very big bank, State Bank of India, to 2 lakh employees. That was a project. Obviously, we also got paid for that. So for that, somebody prepared excerpts from a book published from Delhi Center itself. A small, about 40-page book. So when I read that one particular topic, very small. See, it was only the, what you call, some portion, excerpts, what they call, selected portions from lectures. It was less than a page. It was really, I found nothing in that. What is this lecture? And why this is being published? Why? What is there? Nothing in it. Then later on I realized, it's not the lecture. It's not the words. The moment that Swami would get up on this stage, his life would speak, not the lectures. So it was entirely different to hear him and entirely different to read later on, which was nothing. But when he used to speak, it was something like that. I've heard one of the greatest speakers of all time from our country, that Jiddu Krishnamurti. He will simply arrest your mind. For 1.5 hours, 2 hours, you just can't look this way or that way. That kind of a power. But behind that, behind all those, it's not those words. Because Swamiji himself says somewhere, talking about personality, some person comes, uses the most flowery language, diction and so on, makes no impression on the audience. Someone else, his grammar is not so great, his diction is not so great, this and that, but he makes a tremendous impression on the audience. That is what he says is the personality. So there is a huge difference. So there is a huge difference. So that way, it's not possible to influence someone just by writing and all that. Unless there is a tremendous life to back up what you speak, it will have no influence whatsoever. So obviously, what you used to call as a chapras or mandate, unless the God gives you the command, it's no use trying to lecture. Nobody will listen. Anyone will listen. It will be of no use. Today, you see the YouTube, etc., flooded with lectures, flooded with talks. People keep on listening day and night. Instead of they used to listen to film songs, now they are listening to lectures. That's all. That will not make any impact that way. So he says, sir, I have heard something like that, but I have never been to his lectures. I don't know how much about it. Ram Krishna, Pratap's brother came here. He stayed a few days. He had nothing to do and said he wanted to live here. I came to know that he had left his wife and children with his father-in-law. He has a whole brood of them. So I took him to task. Just fancy, he's a father of so many children. Will people from the neighborhood feed them and bring them up? He's even ashamed that someone else is feeding his wife and children and that they have been left at his father-in-law's house. I scolded him very hard and asked him to look for a job. Then he was willing to leave from here. See, Ramkrishna, although he practiced the highest ideal of Tyaga, yet he was not a person to entertain any namby-pamby people like that. He was very, very clear. You better go and look for a job. Who will look after wife and children? You fool? What do you think? I scolded him severely. See, it depends upon the people, his treatment. He knew that this man did not have very genuine renunciation that way. It was something else, some fancy, some idea that is driving him. So he did not really encourage him. On the other hand, there was another disciple, one Harish. Harish also used to come and live. Now, he was also a married person. Sri Ramakrishna would allow him to stay. He stayed always. He was a good sadhaka, although of course he developed some little mental, his people did something, tantra and all that, he developed a little mental problem, but later on ultimately he got cured. But when he was with Sri Ramakrishna, Thakur used to allow him to come and stay. His wife and maybe mother-in-law or somebody, they came. He went and hid himself somewhere. He did not even meet them. And Sri Ramakrishna did not scold him for that. He knew that his renunciation was genuine. So he would. So depending upon one's preparedness, Thakur would allow or make him do something like that. Then comes the real question. Are you married? Yes, sir. Sri Ramakrishna with a shudder. Oh, Ramlal, alas, he is married. Yam sat motionless, like one guilty of a terrible offense. His eyes fixed on the ground. He thought, is it such a wicked thing to get married? Imagine in the first or second visit, Ramkrishna is making such a big issue about him getting married. Of course, he poured his love and affection on Master Moshe, tolerated everything he did and guided him. And he was one of the most beloved of Sri Ramakrishna. But he had to pass the initial fire ordeal, test by fire. Sri Ramakrishna continued, have you any children? Yam this time could hear the beating of his own heart. He was virtually was suffering a heart freeze. He whispered in a trembling voice, yes, sir, I have children. Very sadly, Sri Ramakrishna said, ah, me, he even has children. Sri Ramakrishna's worry and concern was very genuine. But for coming to Sri Ramakrishna, he would have been completely drowned. That was his condition. Daily fight between his wife and mother. Number of children, not much income, very limited. He was a typical samsari, drowned in worldly duties and afflictions and bondages and so on. The whole thing changed because of his association with Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, he had come to Baranagar to commit suicide. That was his intention. So imagine what was his condition. There was nothing. Sri Ramakrishna expressed a very genuine concern which he would have expressed about anyone else for that matter. A normal person involved in the world, completely busy with only worldly duties. Obviously, Sri Ramakrishna, where would he have time? He has a wife and a number of children, he has to earn, he has other duties. Absolutely gone. That's why he was expressing that concern. But then, Sri Ramakrishna thus rebuked. Yam sat speechless. His pride had received a blow. You know, Sri Ramakrishna used to correct his disciples or those who come near him in various ways. See, this is again a small hint for all of us. Don't ever feel disheartened or completely down and out if something happens a little adverse in your lives. It's a journey which all of us have to pass through. Whether in a monastery or in a... You'll be shocked if I tell you what all we have to pass through. Whether it's a monastery or a house or a college or a university, anywhere, once you're in the world, it is absolutely inevitable something else is going to come. But we must again and again only pray to Sri Ramakrishna that we don't lose faith in him, in his power to redeem us, in his capacity, compassion, to bail us out of the situation. That's what we can normally, very foolishly we expect that everything with the world will be very orderly. Nothing would go wrong. It's not the way at all. Of course, all of us take enough care, enough concern. To the best of our knowledge, we try to do things. But remember that things will certainly go wrong. The world, it came out of chaos. It exists in chaos. It ends in chaos. It's going to be like that. So don't ever expect that everything will be orderly, everything will be fine. Your money, your income, your possessions, your assets, your wife, husband, children, everything perfect. Nowhere you'll be near God in such a situation. Have you ever heard in the history of the mankind? Someone with all completely 100% okay in terms of worldly life, has realized God or progress in spiritual life? Tell me one instance. I am very sure there's not even one. So, but then when worldly afflictions come, when we suffer blows, it's hurting certainly. Death happens, deprivation happens, loss happens, this happens, health breaks down, relationship breaks down. Something or other happens and that hurts us. But then if you're prepared, that's why we need to prepare when you're all right. When we get those windows of happiness or well-being in between, we should use that time profitably to pray from the depths of our heart to Sri Ramakrishna. Please give us the strength and the good sense to hold on to your feet in times of adversity. When things go all right, we are all happy. We offer sweets and this and that. Everybody is fine. But very, very famous that Kabir's song, isn't it? Very, very nice. He sang that Dukh mein koi na ko, when who takes the name. So that is the nature. When things are all right, we celebrate. But when things go wrong, so that's why at normal times when things are okay, we must build that enough strength and inner capacity, dependence on God, so that we are not left high and dry when things go wrong. So if you hold on at that time, again the cycle will change, and then again good things will come. And then again we go forward. So most important is to develop that strength to hold on to Thakur's feet in times of such adversity. That is very important spiritual life. So everybody would, accordingly, he would mold. Somebody this one, someone that. So many instances, wherever it is. See, even a person like Rakhal Maharaj. He was again, he was naturally a person of great spiritual samskaras. He was pestering Thakur again and again for experience. One day Thakur scolded him severely. He was polishing Thakur's feet with oil at that time. He is from a Zamindar family. He was so hurt and was wounded, kind of. His pride was wounded. Immediately threw down and broke that oil small bottle where it was container. It was a glass container, broke it, and in a huff, he tried to go out of Dakshineshwar. But he went up to the main gate. He could not take one step beyond that. He felt as if someone has bound his legs with a chain, and he just was unable to take one step forward. In the meanwhile, Ramakrishna sent Ramlal Dada to bring him back. When he came, he said, "Could you go?" So that is Ramakrishna. He will protect you, he will do everything for us. But we must have that prayerful attitude to seek his support, to seek his guidance, to seek his protection in such times of adversity, when things really go wrong and when we are just really having no clue as to what's happening. For that we must prepare ourselves, because these type of things will happen in everybody's life. No one can escape all this. Ramakrishna looked at him kindly and said affectionately, "You see, you have certain good signs. I know them by looking at a person's forehead, his eyes, and so on." So Ramakrishna would really examine, particularly those close disciples. He would take their hand and weigh how heavy it is. He had a wonderful insight about human personality, and he would look at a person and know whether he is spiritually inclined or not. He says, "You have certain good signs. Tell me now." Again it goes on. "What kind of person is your wife? Has she spiritual attributes, or is she under the power of avidya?" Okay, avidya, maya, under the spell of that, or has she spiritual tendencies? Normally, when Yogin got married, because he was such a really good sadhaka, he was not willing to marry. Then his mother said, "Your father has given word. What will happen if you make him break his promise?" Then he somehow married. But he was once again living a life like a monk. And his mother scolded, "Arey, you married and you are not living with your wife. What is this?" "No, I married only for father's sake." "Arey, does anyone marry for father's sake?" She simply turned around. And he was shocked. And he also saw this Ramakrishna was a Kamini Kanchan Tyagi. Now how do we go and show my face? Again another instance, how Sri Ramakrishna brings them. Then Sri Ramakrishna hit upon a plan. He sent a message. "See, I gave that boy some things to purchase. He did not return back the money." And this news reached Yogin. He was furious. Oh, after all, he is a Brahmin, priest in the temple. Few paisas, I'll go and throw him on his face and come back. He was not coming. To make him come, Sri Ramakrishna hit upon this plan. When he came, not a word about all that, because that was not the purpose. Then he said, "What is it if you get married? If you have faith in this, even 1,000 marriages will not affect your spiritual life. 1,000 marriages, he says. What you need is faith in this. Why do you worry? Bring your wife. I will also turn her mind towards spiritual life." So that is the intention he's asking. Is your wife spiritually inclined? Or is he busy with the world and worldly things and saris and ornaments and so on and so forth? What is her tendency? And then foolishly, poor Yam, she did not know. See, why Sri Ramakrishna was trying to break his ego that way. Those days, an headmaster was considered most intelligent person on earth, a wizard, so to say. Yes, headmaster means something terrific in the society. And also, he had a chance to go to England. He was selected for ICS or something. but he couldn't go because his family couldn't afford. So there was always the pride of education. And I'm highly educated, I'm highly rational. All those were in him. Because when he entered Sri Ramakrishna's room, also we saw last time, he said, does he read books? So he thought that all knowledge, it comes only from books. So again, he is stumbling again. She's all right, but I'm afraid she's ignorant. वो ठीक है, but लेकिन क्या बोलूं? अनपढ़ा है, ignorant, masks it with evident displeasure, and you are a man of knowledge. M had yet to learn the distinction between knowledge and ignorance. Because as far as he was concerned, knowledge means whatever you glean from books. Ignorance means you are not educated, you have not read, you don't have that bookish knowledge. Up to this time, his assumption had been that one got knowledge from books and schools. Later on, he gave up this false conception because he was forced to. Here is a person who had never entered a school, but yet he is the wisest of persons. He has such wisdom, such a powerful intellect. People like Keshav and many others were considered the intellectual giants of the society of that time, just couldn't stand before him. Obviously, when you see such sterling examples right before you, your ideas certainly change. It's not because somebody said, he saw literally. After seeing Sri Ramakrishna, the way he was talking, the way he was behaving, many people had to change many of their ideas. Even Swamiji had to make drastic adjustments to his conceptions, to his knowledge, to his ideas after seeing Sri Ramakrishna. Because he was totally different. That's why Yam somewhere says, Baki Shakalke uni khole fele korechen, apna ke apna hate tori korle. For all others, he put them in the mold and created. But as far as you are concerned, you are created by his very hands, very special. He was taught to know that God is knowledge and not to know him is ignorance later on. When Sri Ramakrishna explained, and you are a man of knowledge, Yam's ego was again badly shocked. Because ultimately, why Sri Ramakrishna is doing, the beginning itself, he wanted to once and for all make him really endear him to himself and giving him such protection, everything. But initially, he really wanted to give him something really to think about and hit him hard so that his ego is crushed. See, ultimately, they say in spiritual life, the thing is to give up our ahankara, the ego. Go beyond. Ego is the essence of spiritual life. So Sri Ramakrishna was taking him on the right path, even in the beginning itself, on the first or second occasion itself. He was giving him enough hits, enough blows, so that he really corrects himself, leaving no room for any maladjustment or wrong understanding. Then again the next question. Well, do you believe in God with form or without form? Again I was shocked. How is it possible? If you believe in God with form, there is no God without form. If you believe in God without form, there is no God with form. These are all totally contradictory. How there can be either or, he was wondering. Rather surprised at himself. How can one believe in God without form when one believes in God with form? And if one believes in God without form, how can one believe that God has a form? Can these two contradictory ideas be true at the same time? Can a white liquid like milk be black? Sir, I like to think of God as formless. He was very cautious in his reply this time. He didn't exceed the brief after the blows that he received for the first two answers. So he was very quiet and he said, I believe in God with form. That was his. God without form, the non-dual. That was his idea. Formless. Very good. It is enough to have faith in either aspect. You believe in God without form, that's quite all right. But never for a moment think that this alone is true and all else is false. This is actually Thakur's basic idea of harmony. Don't think that your belief, your idea, whatever you think, that alone is true. That is true, but believe that there can be many other aspects. It's not only this, that what you should believe. So that he clearly, from the beginning itself, was kind of teaching him. That is, but never for a moment think that this alone is true, all else is false. Remember that God with form is just as true as God without form. But hold fast to your own conviction. Because Thakur did sadhana, all the forms of Dvaita, all other forms, Tantra, Yoga, Advaita Vedanta of the highest order. So he knew that everything was true. It was his experience. It was not that he was making just a statement. Out of his own experience, he was narrating that God is as much with form as without form. Of course, in several places he has explained all these ideas, how it is with and without form, what's the difference, and so on. Sir, supposing one believes in God with form, certainly he is not the clay image. So this is what is haunting Yam. One might believe in God with form, but is it the clay image? Because we make images out of clay, out of wood, out of stone. These are the ways in which we make images. That is not God, obviously. Sramks. But why clay? It's an image of spirit. Chinmay. Outwardly it is like that. But in reality, it's nothing but consciousness. Chinmay Murti, Chinmay Ram, Chinmay Shyam. Thakur says somewhere. So why do you think it is only clay? Is it not living? It's not Chinmay? Yam could not quite understand the significance of this image of spirit. Obviously, he has not heard about this Chaitanya and then God being that all-pervasive, whatever way you might worship, yet He's present in and through all that. So many other ideas. The assertion that both are equally true amazed Yam. He had never learned this from books. Thus, he received a third blow. It was not that completely crushed. He came forward to argue with the master a little more, because the learning was not full or complete turkey. But sir, he said to the master, one should explain to those who worship clay image that it is not God, that while worshipping it, they should have God in view and not the clay image. One should not worship clay. Bas. See what we do in Durga Puja and all that. To start with, it's only clay. But even when we begin the worship, we slowly infuse the idea of Chaitanya. The Pran Pratishtha is done. It's literally worshipped as a living goddess. No one ever in the Durga Puja, this is only clay image. Then that person has no idea of Durga Puja at all. So it's only the Chinmay Ma, mother of consciousness, the living mother, the awakened mother, that's worshipped. For worship you need a symbol, something, even formless. Formless means what? What is the idea of formless? There also somewhere because the human mind cannot grasp any idea unless there is a symbol or some indication. Something should be there, otherwise it's not possible. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, there is one hobby of you Calcutta people, giving lectures and bringing others to light. Nobody ever stops to consider how to get the light himself. Who are you to teach others? No, it is complete. The smashing is total. This is a hobby of Calcutta people, because now also there is not only a hobby, it is their main work now, to go on lecturing and bringing light to others, not knowing what is happening to oneself. He who is the Lord of the universe will teach everyone. He alone teaches us who has created this universe, who has made the sun and the moon, men and beasts, and all other beings, who has provided means for their sustenance, who has given children parents and endowed them with love to bring them up. The Lord has done so many things. Will He not show the people the way to worship Him? If they need teaching, then He'll be the teacher. He is our inner guide. So don't assume that you know everything and you have to bring light to others, teach others. Let them learn. They will learn. God will teach them in His own way, at His own time, when it is necessary. After all, ultimately, what is needed is sincerity, intensity, honesty, and as to practice. Then, out of that, so many places, how it has all happened. Many of you would have seen, even the very person who made that Ayodhya image says, I cannot believe what I did and the transformation that happened just after Pran Pratishtha. This is totally different. I have myself sculpted it. I am the person who did it. But you look at it now, after Pran Pratishtha, is completely different. These are all great shastras, great techniques, great ideas in our scriptures. It's all literally completely designed, documented techniques. These are all. So, anything ultimately, if you keep on worshipping with that idea, the power that is within you, the same Chaitanya, the same consciousness, it's infused into that. And you really realize that as living, as a very powerful embodiment of consciousness, and so on and so forth. Just to get an initial idea, to make a beginning, one keeps that image. But as the worship intensifies, as the japa, as the meditation, all that, then that is replaced ultimately by a one idea, that is consciousness. The living Krishna, living Mother, living Thakur. So, it's not correct to say that, oh, it's only clay. No, just to give you an indication, just to make a beginning. The Thakur says, God has provided everything. He's given love to the parents to bring their children and so on. Will He not do anything? Who are you to do all that? So, don't think that you have to bring wisdom or light to the whole world. You look after your life. Others, they will, in their own way, they will do it. That's not your job, or you don't have to worry about that. So that's what great people, when they understand, is how they behave. It's said about Sukadeva. He was, from beginning, he was, from the birth, he was a Brahmagyani. The world never touched him whatsoever. He didn't have anything to do with the world at all. He was from birth, he was a Brahmagyani. And should go about without clothes, because he had no idea of bondage. He had no idea of shame, no idea of man or woman, no idea of anything that is dual. So absolutely he was like a free bird. He had no idea he would go like that. He was a Digambara. Since he went for a Bhiksha alms somewhere. And the first time he saw a young lady coming out, and so then her mother-in-law was also there, and this young woman gave him Bhiksha and was about to give him Bhiksha. Then he asked his mother, Mother, what is that on the chest of that young lady? Is she having big boils? Then the mother explained, No, my child, God has provided her this thing so that she might feed the children milk when they are born. Sukadeva's eyes are opened. If God can make such provision, a child that is to be born in future, He could provide like this. Will He not provide for me? I have already taken birth. He simply went away without taking the alms or the Bhiksha. So, great people, they understand. Who are we? It's God's creation, God's duty, God's responsibility. We don't have to. You do your sadhana, you do your life, you live your life. The other things will come by themselves. You don't have to bother about any of these things. He is our inner guide. Supposing there is an error in worshipping the clay image, doesn't God know that? Through it, He alone is being invoked. See, if you believe God is Antaryami, God is all pervasive. He is everywhere. If something wrong is happening, somebody is wrongly worshipping clay images God, would he not know that? He is everywhere. He is inside everything. He is antaryami. He knows what is inside you completely. Why should you get a headache over it? You had better try for knowledge and devotion yourself. You develop your knowledge and devotion. Why do you worry about all that? This time, Yam felt that his ego was completely crushed. He now said to himself, yes, he has spoken the truth. What need is there for me to teach others? Now, see, the blows that Sri Ramakrishna gave were very strong. Normally people would have run away after that, would have never come back. Suppose you come to the ashrama, I tell you even a fraction of what Thakur said, you will never see my face all your life. But Yam held on. See, that was a test. He passed that test and straight away that awakening is taking place in his heart. This was the transformation that made Yam so great. This was a beginning, that extraordinary change in his perception, the transformation of his mind. He says, what need is there for me to teach others? Have I known God? Do I really love Him? Haven't room enough for myself in my bed and I'm inviting my friends to share with me. I know nothing about God, yet I am trying to teach others. What a shame, how foolish I am. This is not mathematics or history or literature that one can teach to others. It's a deep mystery of God. What He says appeals to me. So this is the real transformation of mind. For this only Sri Ramakrishna gave him such hard blows so that he can really turn inwards, know for himself where he is, and that is how his spiritual journey began. This was M's first argument with the master, and happily his last. Never again he argued with Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna knew that this was a great barrier in M's life. The so-called intellectual acumen, the so-called academic knowledge, the so-called being a headmaster and so on, arguing, trying to prove that he was correct everywhere. Thakur knew that this should be wiped out from his personality. That's what he did in that very second meeting, and that was the end of it. And it was easy for him to learn afterwards. In places, we run a huge value education program. Sometimes very highly qualified people come. I just hold my hands. Please, you have to do quite a lot of unlearning. Because so they come with all their baggage and try to impose everything from day one. And here you have to do quite a lot of unlearning. Then slowly you can learn and do and all that. So unlearning was happening in the case of Yam. That's the problem. Unless you do that, you cannot learn, you cannot grow. So Sri Ramakrishna made Yam grow his very second visit by completely crushing his ego and at the same time assuring him that you have good signs, good tendencies. So Yam was in a kind of dazed condition in that day, and that's why I think he must have left. Further, of course, I should continue. We stop here because we always give some small window for question answers. In case anyone wants to ask any question, you can ask. Otherwise, then we can continue the next class. Anyone has any question? Anything you want to ask?
हाँ महाराज जी, प्रणाम महाराज जी.
Yes.
मेरा एक सवाल है. दोपहर में जो हमारे महाराज ने एक बात बोली थी, राघवेंद्र महाराज ने साधना के बारे में, तो उन्होंने बताया था कि साधना में जो साधु था वो एक गुफा में गंगा किनारे बहुत 18 साल तक उन्होंने माँ का यही पूजना किया.
Then he had a darshan, this is what he was saying. Yes.
हाँ. अच्छा महाराज जी, जैसे एक माँ है, वो अपने बच्चों का पालन पोषण करती है, उन्हें अच्छे संस्कार देती है, घर गृहस्थी को देखती है, क्या ये साधना नहीं है?
वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन इस सबको पीछे भगवान की याद नहीं रख के करो तो अहंकार से भर जाएगा मन। मैं कर रहा हूँ, मैं देखभाल कर रहा हूँ, मैं अच्छा कर रहा हूँ, मैं इन लोगों को देख रहा हूँ, मैं आ जाएगा। सब भगवान की संसार है, गोपाल जी की संसार है। वो मेरे को उन्होंने रखा सब देखने के लिए, करने के लिए। हमेशा वही भाव बहुत जरूरत है। और उसके अलावा apart from that also one has to definitely sit and do japa, meditation, etc. इससे सिर्फ नहीं होगा। But if you have too much of other responsibilities, one say कहने में भी ठीक है, भगवान ऐसी कोई he will make arrangements, आपका सहयोग कर देंगे। But ultimately, without sadhana, it's not possible to progress in spiritual life. लेकिन if you are completely depending on God, whatever you do, just like Sri Ramakrishna, the famous Rame Richa, jo kahani, everything is a will of Rama. So you can be in the sansar, but every moment is your mind tied to God's feet. Then it's okay. See, what is japa for the prayer? Japa is just एक अक्षर माला है, एक दो चार अक्षर लेके बने हुए कुछ चीज है। So if you look at it, it's only just a combination of some letters. But if you attribute meaning, if you attribute ideas, if you associate something very great, something redeeming, something capable of elevating you spiritually, it is a different aspect altogether. So wherever one might be, whatever one might do, how much is their mind on God? That's what's important. Anybody from Ireland, Scotland, England, Calcutta, Satyajit is there. So many from Delhi are also attending. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can say pranam and then leave.
So you were talking about Pranam Maharaj, Sandhya. Maharaj, you were talking just now when you were explaining to Urvashi that whatever we do, wherever we do, however we do, we should have it. We should always, God should always be there at the back of our mind. That constant recollectedness of God. So how do we, but why? But then God, Thakur also says that, Swamiji in fact says that you should put full concentration. So if at the back of our mind we have Thakur, so we have not reached that level where we, can have that and this. Then a little bit of the mind gets diverted. Then you have to remind yourself that, you have to have him at the back of your mind. You have to have the constant recollection.
So see, everything, nothing comes easy. Nothing comes easy. I often say that, of course, nowadays no one does everything. People have servants or they buy from the Zomato or things like that.
Not here, Maharaj. Not in the Western world. It is yet to come to the Western world.
Householders, housewives, when they start doing the chapati initially, however much they try, it becomes tera mera hota hai. It's not round. But after some years, just baat karte, it comes in the most beautiful, like you drew with a geometry box, instrument like. It comes
with practice.
So practice. Everything one has to see, nothing. Can you go to a good shop? Can you just take everything? You will be arrested for shoplifting. Everything you have to pay a price.
Right.
So if you really want, you have to do it. And that would happen only there is an inner fire.
Yes.
Otherwise, out of sheer compulsion of somebody says this is how you should be, then the mind would forget it, go back, relapse and so on. But if there's an inner feeling that going near God and experiencing His grace, experiencing His compassion, experiencing His holiness are all so important in my life, if you feel it so powerfully, then you'll make every effort while working, trying to remember, doing japa separately, doing meditation, doing everything that is possible, doing tirthas, this, that, everywhere. Every attempt, everything that we do is an effort in that direction. So it all depends upon how much is the inner fire for that kind of a life. Yes, Sandhya?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj.
Namaskaram, Maharaji. Just, Maharaji, could you just expand the term unlearning?
Yes. Unlearning, you see, for example, it came in the case of Master Marshall. He was thinking that reading from books is all that you get way of knowledge. And not knowing that is ignorance. So Sri Ramakrishna made him understand there is no knowledge at all. He smashed his ego. And Sri Ram understood that knowing God is not knowledge, and not knowing Him is ignorance. And one should work in that direction. So, what I was saying was, sometimes people with high qualifications come. Yes. They have some doctorate somewhere, they are big management experts, and they say, no, Maharaj, this is what you should do, this is what you should. You please see, learn first, find out what it is. Don't simply try to bring all that here. It will not work, because this is running for so many years, so many people have worked for it. So you cannot just come and say straight away this is how it is. So everywhere in spiritual life also, learning is, before you turn to spiritual life, you had a life.
Yes.
And once you come to spiritual life, a new life begins, so to say. Then many of the conceptions, ideas which he had earlier, they undergo a radical change afterwards. Yes. So this is the process of unlearning and new learning in spiritual life.
That is speaking the truth, we mean.
Yeah. Because there are many ideas about people, about spiritual life, about practices, about dependence on God, about God consciousness. All those ideas, whatever we had or we didn't have, they all start undergoing a radical change when you become seriously interested in spiritual life.
Yes. Thank you.
So, okay, Juma?
Thank you so much. It was such a busy and a hectic day for you.
Yes. Malai wants to say something.
Yeah, I think Roy has a question with regards to the Durga Puja, Maharaj. So, initiate and then when Pran Pratishta and go ahead. Sorry with your question.
No, just I was wondering, like how when the start of Durga Puja, the example that you gave about Pran Pratishta and Chinmoyi Rupe, we worship Ma Durga. So then on Vijayadashmi, when we are going for the Visarjan, then that is the clay image that is going for the Visarjan.
See, what happens in Durga Puja, Dashami, one of the things is, how do you do this Pran Pratishta? From your own heart, you bring out that consciousness, and that is what is established in that image. That is the source. It's not taken from air or somewhere. From your heart, you do that Pran Pratishta.
Yeah.
And Dasami day, the Pujari again invokes that into his heart from the image. So then what is left is only the clay image. The consciousness has been taken back, and only the clay image remains, and that is consigned to the waters.
Yeah, because that is what I remember either reading or hearing, that the same thing, that like the Visarjan to Hoina is with you.
Yeah.
So what are you doing that way? Yeah.
Yeah, not only mother stays with you, ritually that image where the pran was established, pran pratishta happened, that the pujari invokes back into his heart. That's a specific ritual there. And after that, what remains is only the clay image. Clay image, how many years will you accumulate? Next year again you need a new one. So then it is consigned to the waters.
Okay, thanks for
Thank you very much.
Maharaj,
Om
Padam.
Shanti Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. So we will again see
On 5th of May 5th.
5th of May also it will be like this, because again we have a talk here. Sarvapriyanji will be here.
Okay.
We'll around 8:15 like that we'll start. Okay?
All right.